Driving is one of the biggest killers of under 25s in the UK, accounting for almost a quarter of all deaths involving cars. A government bill has been proposed detailing changes to testing laws, but is yet to be passed. If a new law were enforced, young drivers could be learning for up to a year and face tougher restrictions. Last year in Cambridgeshire, the emergency services responded to 36 fatal collisions. Nearly 40% of the deceased were under 25.
Any mobile, for an immediate grade, RTC on the A1 southbound at Eton Soken. Response.
Romeo Charlie 46.
Romeo Charlie 46, thank you. If you make your way please, A1 southbound at Eton Soken. We've got reports of a three-vehicle road traffic collision. Injuries unknown. We are notifying ambulance and fire, over.
Roger received, state 5 please.
In 2006, Bedfordshire Police were present at a single vehicle collision here. 17-year-old Jamie McKeegan lost his life just 2 months after passing his driving test. His death was ruled to be completely accidental and placed down to inexperience.
They tested for alcohol, there was no alcohol, there was no sign of drugs. There was nothing really why this accident should have happened. The road was dry. It was, we think, about 11:30 at night. For some unknown reason, the car left the road.
He was training in something he'd loved to do. The future was almost mapped out for him and he was happy. He was thrilled to be driving at last. And in an instant, all that goes. For him and for us. We'll never have a wedding. We'll never have the grandchildren. There's so many losses, it just goes on, even now.
Jamie's story is something which the police see all too often. The current driving law makes no compulsory rules regarding the number of lessons a person has before passing their test.
The test and our testing regime in the UK is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but you still don't drive in all the conditions. I mean, you could, let's say you started driving in April, did all your learning and everything else with a very good instructor and went through to test within 6 to 8 weeks, let's say, passed your test first time, happy days. You could have done every single drive in the dry, every single drive in light traffic, every single drive you wouldn't have been on the motorway because you're not allowed to, and every single drive in daylight. You're out with your friends, time gets on, it's 10 o'clock, oh, will you just run us back to wherever, Anna, please? Do you mind giving us a lift to Histon? It's now dark, it's pouring with rain, you're on the A14, and then you're on the M11.
By passing his test in just 12 days, Jamie lacked this vital driving experience, which his family now feel is something the UK government should be aware of.
I think as responsible parents, we did all we could to try and make sure Jamie was safe. We were very strict about the CC of the car, that it was safe and MOT'd and tested. We took the advice we were given about when he should apply for his test, and it seemed Jamie was a natural driver and actually was ready to take his test very early, within 2 weeks. And at the time we were really pleased about that. Now I look back and I wonder if that's right. Maybe there should be a limit on how early you can take your test, because although obviously he passed his test easily, he lacked experience, and time can only give you that experience.
It's really hard to say what it is. You could lower the CC limit. You could perhaps even put restrictors on cars to, as they do on motorbikes, so that you have to drive on a very, very low horsepower bike for a few years. That may be the answer, but if you can kill yourself at doing 38 miles an hour, I really don't know what the answer is, other than they've just got to be aware of what they're dealing with, and death is not fun for anybody. It really does mess up everybody's life, totally.
Although there is no clear solution to preventing deaths like Jamie's, the proposed changes to the law could reduce the number of young lives lost. The new testing strategy would require all drivers to complete a compulsory learning period of a year. Once the practical test is passed, a probationary licence will be issued. The learning period would give young drivers more experience, but has faced some criticism.
I think with new changes of legislation, you need to look at the detail, because obviously there are aspects of that. So, for example, many of my constituents work shift work, and so in an area, rural area, where there's very limited public transport, where there aren't the alternatives of a underground, as there is in London, or a regular train service, for example, from Wisbech, then people often rely on their car to get to work. So one has to look at the details of any proposal.
Despite this, the local government in Cambridgeshire feel that there are aspects of driving legislation that need to be reformed.
We do need to look at whether young drivers are getting access to very powerful cars at too early a stage, and whether there is more of a probationary period we can have for young drivers, so that they learn how to use the roads rather than simply passing their test and then often being at risk of an accident very early in their driving career.
Cambridgeshire Road Safety Partnership run days like this one to educate young and old alike about the dangers driving brings. It is hoped that events encouraging attitude changes can work hand in hand with the proposed law changes.
In itself, the system works in terms of giving people the skill to pass the test, and I'd be doing driving instructors disservice to say that that there wasn't a great deal of skill involved on their part in teaching people how to drive. I think from the young people's perspective, it's seen as passing my test so I can drive and get on with it. And I think it's more about changing that attitude, and making sure that they carry on learning and they don't see it as once they pass the test they can drive, and it kind of enhances this feeling of invincibility for them.
Fire and ambulance take part, and a crash simulator is used to demonstrate the impact of a collision.
It's really about putting them in that more realistic situation. You're sat in a car watching a film about a scenario that people have got themselves in which ends in a crash. Just being sat in a car makes that so much more realistic. You think, well, yeah, this is a bit like when we're all out. We're sat in the car like this. You can talk physically with a seatbelt there, talk about wearing a seatbelt and what the seatbelt actually does. And I think having that and a little bit of movement in the car just makes it a little bit more realistic and makes it able to be related.
Jamie didn't receive the level of education young drivers his age now get. Both himself and his family were unaware of the implications driving can have.
I think we're experts now in knowing the risks of teenage drivers. We didn't realise at the time, but 17-year-old lads, rural roads, Friday nights. We now understand that there are an awful lot of accidents at those times in that group of youngsters, and we didn't know before, and Jamie didn't know that. Maybe there needs to be more awareness of those statistics, because we were in a false sense of security. We thought he'd be fine. Never in a million years did we imagine this happening. He was sensible, careful lad, yet this happened. Maybe we need to make more of those statistics, make people more aware, parents more aware, and certainly the youngsters themselves more aware that when they go out on a Friday night across a rural road, the statistics are high that something dreadful can happen.
All I can say is they will have no idea what impact it leaves on the parents and the family that's left. It's not just leaving without a son or without a daughter. It's leaving them without a life. It really is.
Awareness of the risks have developed since Jamie's death, but officials are still calling for shocking tactics.
What I'd say to him is, you come and stand on that riverbank in the cold, in the rain, and pull that body out of the water. You come and do that. That'd change your driving. It would. I mean, I did that last weekend. Last Sunday night, I pulled an 18-year-old out of the water. Dreadful. Let them come and see it. Play the video. Parents would do it. They'd go for it. They'd say, yeah, please do. Say, right, look at this. That'll slow you down. That'll make you think.
Even if driving education grows, or new driving laws are enforced, it is impossible to say if young deaths will ever be prevented. The changes are likely to improve statistics, but for families living with their loss, the struggle will be endless.
Your life does change completely, absolutely completely. No matter what anybody says, you're never ever the same again. And we used to make the mistake of saying, oh, we just want to get our life back, or our old life back, or something like that. And our counsellor would be very adamant by saying, you'll never get your life back. You'll have a new life. It won't be anything like your old life. And it's true.
It's not easy, even 7, 8 years on. I still sometimes wonder where Jamie is. I sometimes half expect him to walk through the door or see his little car pull up